I will remember you. Will you remember me? Don't let your life pass you by, and weep not for the memories.
You might remember how the Wii name began to make perfect sense once you started hearing it as Wii. It was clear how much fun we all had playing together. But in thinking about a new Nintendo system, we knew the prevailing thought would be this. Yes, the game will probably still be right for all of us, but could it also be a perfect fit just for you?
Don't let your life pass you by, and weep not for the memories.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Nintendo Shack here with the crew at PSVG, the only gaming podcast with more great titles than the Wii U itself. And funny I should say Wii U because that's what we're here to discuss this evening. The life, the journey, and the death of the Wii U itself. It's about that time we put this book to a close and move on with our gaming as the Switch is upon us. In what is hopefully will be a few short months, but we're not entirely sure as of right now. But we want to take a look back at a great console, which a lot of people kind of gave the thumbs down overall, and we're going to discuss that, whether or not we agree or disagree with that, and kind of revisit down memory lane. For those of you who have a Wii U, you can join us and reminisce of the good times, the bad times, and the long times in between titles. And for those of you that did not go on this journey, we're going to make you feel bad for not doing so, and realize you might have missed something very special here. But, to kick it all off, we're going to have Donnie start with the whole introduction of the Wii U and how it kind of popped into all of our mind frames. So, without further ado, Donnie, take it away, sir.
Thank you, good sir. Good evening. Greetings, Koopalings. We're going to step into the Wayback Machine, and I'm going to give you a little history on the Wii U about the launch and the announcement. Kevin, Jason, did you guys know that Wii U actually dates all the way back to May 11th, 2006.
I can't say that I did.
I did because I read the notes.
2006 was actually the year that the Wii launched. An interview with Shigeru Miyamoto, he was asked why the Wii did not have HD graphics, and he said, at the time, they didn't feel that there were enough HD TVs in the country, and that the next console would support HD TV output, and that is kind of the first hint of the next console, which would eventually become the Wii U. It wouldn't be until April of 2011 that statement would come full circle when leaks began to circulate that Nintendo would finally unveil their next console, the successor to the Wii, and it was dubbed Project Cafe. Do you guys chase down the Project Cafe rumors?
Oh, yeah. That was
To go with the dolphin and the revolution?
Yep.
I try to remember like where my mindset was like at this time, and I think like Nintendo. I think like Nintendo as a whole was so off my radar because I can barely even remember like any of the post-launch stuff.
Oh, you're talking. This is Donnie at probably his infinite nerddom. This was when I was in college. And I was working night shifts, and I had a lot of time. My night shift job wasn't like as extensive and intensive as my job is now, and I had a lot of time. And I was chasing. I remember the Wii HD and the Wii 2, Project Cafe. I remember all of that stuff, and that's when I first started following some of my favorite bloggers and personalities on Twitter and YouTube. Now that's why I have such a long history with some of those. But let's fast forward a bit. that rumor of the Project Cafe became true on stage at E3 in 2011 when Reggie Fils-Aimé jumped on stage and showed off their next console and their tablet-like controller. Games like Super Mario Bros., Wii Sports, Wii Fit, Nintendo Land, and a Zelda tech demo, or a demonstration of what Zelda could be, was showcased. Nintendo also spent a lot of time highlighting the off-TV play, which we'll talk about, and entertainment features like apps and video chat. But the Wii didn't come out that year. I remembered when I was doing some research for this podcast, I remember this reveal trailer because the thing that hooked me, hook, line, and sinker for the Wii U was when they showed Wii Sports Golf and they put the gamepad on the ground and they hit the ball off the gamepad. I was
that's right.
Hook, line, and sinker.
I remember that.
Do you guys remember that trailer?
I do remember that.
So I do think this is where the confusion that is often debated begins. Because it's a weird way to jumpstart a console. I mean, with the Switch, we've gotten a reveal trailer, and we have a reveal, like a full announcement coming, and everything seems more clear, and I think that's a direct response or left turn from what they did with Wii U, where they showed this controller, and then they showed like a montage of a family playing on a controller, and then they were like, come back next year.
Yep.
And they're like, what, next year? You just showed it to us, and you didn't tell us, like, is it a controller? Is it an add-on?
Add-on, yep. That's the biggest thing. I remember that.
So, with all signs pointing to the big E3 unveiling in 2012, Nintendo finally brought the goods, where they finally unveiled the console, dubbing it the Wii U, because we, as Reggie Fils-Aimé said, we all like to play, and you like to play, so therefore, the next console will be called the Wii U.
And that was so much clearer, and everybody knew instantly what it was, right?
You know what? This is a good conversation topic. I honestly was never confused. I don't get where a lot of that comes from. I mean, they showcased that it was a new system. They said it was a new system. They kept saying new system. I was expecting a new system with a new controller. I want to say I feel like that was overblown, but obviously maybe it wasn't.
No.
I think after the initial showing of it, so go back to 2011, when they showed it there, I think everyone thought it was like, oh, well, this looks visually, with what they showed at the time, this looks just like the Wii, so therefore this must just be an add-on. And then at first when they said, here's the Wii U the following year, I think instantly people's minds were like, it is just an add-on to the Wii, because it was kind of confirming it for them. And I know they said it was an add-on. It wasn't an add-on, rather it was a whole new console. And I remember being like, okay, it is. But then I remember reading the recaps for E3, and a lot of the journalists themselves said they didn't know. So then I kind of started second-guessing myself. Like, they almost convinced me it wasn't something new at the time just because of all the inaccuracies. But I could see where people were coming from, and the naming still to this day, I don't understand why they did it that way. Love the console, but the naming is still completely stupid. But that's neither here nor there. But I was confused for a brief period of time.
Well, at E3 2012, they come out, they show the console, they show the tablet controller, they show what it's going to use. They finally dubbed the term asynchronous gameplay, which to this day I absolutely hate. I don't think that did the console any favors. But they also showcased some games, gentlemen. On stage that day, we saw Pikmin 3 for the first time. We saw a new Super Mario Bros. U. And we saw a lot of ports. We saw Batman Armored Edition, Trine, Darksiders 2, Mass Effect 3, Ninja Gaiden, We Fit You, Sing Party, Just Dance 4, Lego City Undercover, and then Ubisoft came out and did a big presentation on Zombie U and Rayman Legends. And then the show ended with a demonstration of Nintendo Land, where they had the infamous scene where Reggie says, now, sit back and enjoy the wonders of Nintendo Land, and they had like this fake fireworks show raining down while the screens played the little mini games. They also covered entertainment apps, and this is something I really wanted to point out in this presentation. The Wii U was really focused kind of like on that Xbox market where they wanted to be an entertainment device more than just a games machine, which is very different, I would say, from like the DS lineup and the 3DS lineup, because they spent a lot of time highlighting things. We've got Netflix and we've got Amazon Video and we've got Hulu and you've got YouTube, and the internet browser can run HTML5 video. Like, this was all showcased in this presentation. And a funny point, they also demonstrated Alien Colonial Marines on stage, a game that actually never came out on a Wii U. I remember chasing that game down for like 18 months after I bought one. I was like, this game's got to come, right? They showed it. That's important to remember for the Switch reveal, guys.
Yeah, I was about to say that trailer we saw, and then reading back and remembering that, I'm like, uh-oh, maybe there isn't going to be an NBA 2K. Maybe Skyrim is not coming. Uh-oh.
That's true.
They also showed, we had Miyamoto come out, and they showed the Wara Wara Plaza, which was the home screen, is kind of more or less what I would dub it, and it's when you turn on your Wii U, and you see a bunch of tiles pop up in a circular pattern, and a bunch of Miis gathering around them with little comments. And it was more or less dubbed that the Wara Wara Plaza was going to be Main Street as the homepage for Miiverse on your Wii U. And this new social network for Nintendo gamers was highlighted the Miiverse, and they showcased like how in-game messaging would work with Wii U games and Miiverse. Let's see here. Later that year, as I'll say, this wasn't an E3. This came in, I believe, September. In September, they finally announced that the Wii U would launch North America on November 18th with two SKUs. You had an 8GB $299 bundle and a 32GB $349.99 bundle that also packed in Nintendo Land, and also included the special deluxe digital promotion that granted 10% back for all digital purchases, which was basically $5 back on every $60 purchase you made. So that recaps everything more or less from when the console was rumored to announcement and the games that were kind of shown. I've got some discussion points I want to cover with you guys. First, starting with that DDP promotion, that digital deluxe promotion.
Yes, Diamond Dallas Page.
Yes.
Diamond Cutter.
This is one of the things that I was really upset with that they canceled, or that let expire, that they didn't re-up. I can only imagine that it wasn't like cost-wise helping them at all, especially with the poor sales, which we'll get into later. But this was actually one of my favorite features of the console, something that I wish all video game companies would adopt, is some sort of rebate program for those that go digital. I mean, video game companies want everybody to go digital, and I can't tell you how many indie games and sales and things I jumped into because I had $5, $10, $15 of digital deluxe promotion credit sitting there that I just, it made that easier for me. I was like, sure, I'll throw, $20 towards an NES remix or $5 towards SteamWorld Dig. I mean, I had so much of that stuff on my Wii U because of that DDP promotion.
Yeah, for me, I kind of forgot it even existed. At that time when I picked it up, I really wasn't buying anything digital. So I totally missed out on that whole entire promotion. Nowadays I'll still do it, although be it if it's a Nintendo party released item, I tend to still buy physical only because the resale value is normally really high in the Nintendo stuff. But yeah, I totally missed out on it, but I agree with you 100%. There needs to be some sort of incentive to the gamers to buy digital, considering the only person that really benefits and reaps the rewards from it is the actual publisher, because they're saving money on printing and shipping and manufacturing things. But if they could trickle down even that, just that 10%, it's a great idea to keep in mind that, who knows, maybe they'll revisit with the Switch.
Jason?
That's a shame. It was actually one of the decision points that helped get me, I think, on board under the system when I did. Was the DDP, just because I was like, that's great. I like saving money, So I would often actually buy, digitally just because. And I think I ended up getting like two. Even though I joined with like that last year, I think of the promotion, I still got like 2 games, I think, out of the deal. I know I got 3D World for free, and I think I got Treasure Tracker, I think, through the promotion. So I mean, it definitely paid off for me. I'd love to see something like this again. I mean, I think it. I don't know how you can go wrong with it. Like you said, I don't see. Yeah, you're giving a little bit back, but you're not like making more than making up for that with your sales to make that a benefit.
Right. That can't be more than what they were making in profit there at all.
I think you guys are right. My next point, just discussing the console features, I want to talk about the Wara Plaza and the Miiverse. The most Nintendo announcement and the most confusing thing I think I've ever seen Nintendo do was talk about the Wara Plaza.
What could you even talk about with it? Like,
it was a huge deal. They spent like 5 or 10 minutes discussing it. I mean, it was a big deal. They constantly kept talking about, we have this community of Nintendo gamers, and you're going to be able to constantly communicate. You guys remember, before this, it feels commonplace now because the PS4 and the Xbone are so embedded. But, I mean, before these consoles came out, being social on a video game was very difficult. I mean, PlayStation had like a Facebook login that you could do where you could kind of share like an update to Facebook, but it wasn't really like ingrained really well. It's like trophy pops and stuff like that. The idea that you could talk to other gamers, especially on a Nintendo platform, which is known for not having like voice chat and communications, I thought it was a step in the right direction, ultimately flawed by their execution. But the Wara Plaza, guys, I absolutely hated that every time I booted up my screen. I really did. I love most Nintendo things, and I hated that. I hated that I always had to switch it to see the tiles, that when I used the gamepad to switch to see the tiles on the TV, that I couldn't select the tiles on the TV. I then had to switch it back to select the tiles unless I grabbed like a Wii remote. That drove me nuts. For like years, it's like, I don't even care about this. It was really neat. Actually, my wife took a picture of our family of Miis in the Wara Plaza for like a little picture that she put on the wall because she thought it was cute. That's about the most good that we ever got out of the Wara Plaza.
Now, you do know you can change it so that it opens up to the tiles by default.
Yeah, but if you do that, you still have to, if you're just using the gamepad, you still have to bring the tiles back down to click or move something.
No, but I mean, you can have the tiles show up on your gamepad and the plaza show up only on your TV.
Yeah, so but I just wanted to see my game tiles on the TV and also be able to select the game from there.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense then. Yeah, it didn't bother me as much. The only thing I find sometimes the drawings people do on Miiverse pretty amazing, and sometimes entertaining when they're very weird. But other than that, the only other thing I really ever noticed about the Plaza was sometimes it would loop me in as to what was popular.
What was popular, or what Nintendo wanted you to think was popular?
There right now there's a game. So I booted mine up a couple hours ago, and there's an indie game called What the Flock, and it's about some sort of bird game. And there's no way Nintendo was pushing that.
I don't know. I remember that treasure game that you thought was going to be good. That was on my Wara Plaza for a while.
Yeah, but that's different. That was a free game though. Keep in mind, so people probably downloaded it in troves. They didn't like it, but yeah, I think it's whatever's being used the most because Netflix is always on there. I don't see Nintendo promoting Netflix because there's absolutely zero money in it for them. So I mean, I think it's whatever's most, or at least that's what they touted it as, is what's being used currently the most. So I think seeing that sometimes be like, oh cool, I didn't know this game was out, or I didn't know that virtual console title released, and stuff like that. So sometimes it's kind of cool and interesting to see what people are playing, but other than that, it was pretty pointless. And I mean, Miiverse as a whole for me, I never go to the actual Miiverse sections pretty much ever. But like I said, I do like seeing the drawings and stuff pop up every now and then. But that's about the extent to me. It's a good effort, like you said. It was a very primitive attempt at social gaming, if you will. So I think we'll see something similar and hopefully a lot more effective and better put on the Nintendo Switch. But overall, it didn't really add or detract anything from my gaming experience.
I didn't even know it was called Wara Plaza, so there's that. Coming in late like that. I booted up. It's like, oh, it's like this cute little Nintendo thing that Nintendo does, and they like make little sounds. And if I would turn my Wii U on and leave it running and leave the room and come back, and you hear like these disturbing little like tweets and chirps, I'm like, what the hell is that? Oh, it's just the Plaza. Okay, we're all right.
Jason,
I guess. I guess it's okay. Cool that there's little pictures there. I don't know. And Miiverse is something that has a lot of potential still, but got like a mixed identity a little bit too. I don't know. It's kind of cool. You can share little snippets in there, and I've seen a lot of cool things there, but then there's just so much crap posting that goes on there all the time especially when you got such a wide range of an age demographic that has access to it. But you just got so many stupid things that get posted constantly. Can you imagine if you be working for Nintendo and your job is to moderate Miiverse?
No, forget it.
All you're doing
So
is
many
just
trolls.
going through exactly just deleting crap after crap all
That's
the time.
an interesting point.
That would be the best job for me, though. I just rage as it is, so imagine that. It'd be so satisfying.
I remember the first year of Wii U, the Warrior Plaza was pretty awful because it was like a lot of the same thing over and over again. Specifically in Miiverse. Miiverse is one of my most favorite services that the Wii U offered, and it's something that I absolutely hope continues on with the Switch. I still use Miiverse today. I think I posted something in Miiverse today, actually, from playing Mario Party Star Rush. I use it all the time to capture gameplay, to capture screenshots. I wish we could capture captures, video captures, and I hope that's an addition. I think the one thing that really plagues Miiverse is the fact that nobody thinks of Miiverse as a popular social network. And, people have Facebook, and people have Twitter, and people have Vine and Snapchat and YouTube and all these other things that they're using, and Nintendo tried to just create yet another one. And because it's so niche-based, it's just Nintendo, I feel like that lessens it. I know they updated it to let you click to share to Twitter and stuff like that, but even then, that's a manual thing that you have to do. Mm-hmm. I think you have to do it from the computer, too. So I'm kind of hoping the Switch iteration of Miiverse, if they continue it, which I hope they do, I hope it has some social stuff baked into it. But I can honestly say that there were plenty of times. I think back to my first go-through with Zombie U, where I was literally stuck, and I took a screenshot and posted it, and hey, what do I do here? And I would get, answers to my questions, which I thought was awesome. It stopped me from having to go get my tablet or phone and look up a guide or something like that, and it just felt a little more interactive. And I thought the messages and stuff in games were a really great addition to some games. Like, it worked really well in Zombie U. It worked really well in Super Mario Bros. U. I love seeing my friends, post messages on my overworld. I'll never forget, I think my friend Drew, who bought a Wii U, was probably his first gaming system. Actually, I think it is his first gaming system he bought. He bought a Wii U, and he left me a message one time where he died 22 times on a level. And that was neat. It's cool that you could do that. Wind Waker took advantage of that with the bottle systems.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that service. It's something that I hope sees, an update, of course, on the Switch. But I did enjoy it for what it was. Guys, do you remember Nintendo TV?
Barely. I got to use the service once.
I think I did the same. I think I set it all up, and I was like, oh, cool, I can add my favorite shows and stuff. And then once I actually used it, I'm like, oh, I 100% do not need this in my life. Kind of forgot about it.
So, okay.
I watched a football game with
There you go. And that's exactly where I was going to go. I don't want to say it was ahead of its time because it wasn't that great. I agree with you guys. But I do want to say that Nintendo was onto something. And yet again, the execution was just kind of poor. My Roku has a very similar service. My Roku TV and my Roku boxes have a service where you credential all of your streaming services and applications and cable, and you can search for a show across all of them. Amazon Fire TV has a very similar service. The Xbox has the One Guide, which is an extremely similar service to Nintendo TV, and they did it very early. And again, they were trying to showcase the Wii U as an entertainment device and offer these other things. I mean, Jason, you said that football game. I mean, that's exactly what Twitter's doing right now with the broadcast. Is that they're broadcasting inside of Twitter where you can have a feed of people talking about the game. Nintendo was doing that 3 years ago. It's just back then nobody liked it. I kind of feel when I watched my first football game on Twitter, I honestly can say that was one of the first things I thought about was, man, I did this a few years ago and everybody hated it, and now they're doing it in Twitter and everybody loves it. There is a part of it. There are pieces there with Nintendo TV that were before its time. For the listeners that don't have a Wii U, Nintendo TV was a service or an app that was on the Wii U where it allowed the gamepad to operate as a universal remote control. For all cable subscriber, all providers, you could log in, you'd say, I have a Time Warner cable and I'm in this region, and you'd sit there and sync your remote, and it would be able to control your cable box and your TV, and you'd be able to do everything that you do. All of your cable stuff would be synced in. You could add Netflix, Amazon, and you could sit there and be like, I want to watch Parks and Rec. And it would be like, well, you have it over here on Netflix, and it comes on at 8 o'clock on these channels and stuff like that. I think the biggest flaw with the service was the speed.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was just really slow, and you had to boot it up, and that first year of poor Wii U, everything was really slow. It took forever just to turn the Wii U on. The idea that you would actually wait for the Wii U to turn on to watch TV was a major problem.
You got to wait for all those stability upgrades to come in, like the 3DS is famous for.
So I do think there was a lot of good there. It was a lot of good intention, ultimately flawed. I kind of wish they didn't patch it out. I wish they would have just left it as is, because as they improve the system, that service maybe could have gotten better. I really don't see any advantage in moving it out at all, but they later on did patch it out, and it's no longer available. One thing that my kids definitely enjoyed, because remotes and things still confuse them in terms of sources and whatnot, they really like being able to use the gamepad to turn on the TV to change the source. The play Wii U button, and it would just click it and everything would come on. Mm-hmm. So that was a neat feature.
I use it.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Well, there you go.
I just showed my wife the other night. It's like, you can change the channels and stuff right here with the Wii remote. Just push this TV button.
Mind blown.
I wonder if the Switch will do that at all. I mean, I doubt it because it's going to be docked, right?
Right. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Interesting to see what. But that's a topic for another day.
Okay. I'm going
That's
ahead.
true.
I'm going
That's
ahead.
true.
I apologize. I do want to talk about, I mentioned there was 2 bundles. There was an 8 gigabyte bundle, which was white. And then there was the 32 gigabyte black model that came with the packing game. Now, if you guys didn't know, in Europe, not only did they get the packing game Nintendo Land, it came packed in with Zombie U, which at the time really upset me.
Oh, yeah.
But 32 gigs is not a lot in a digital age. And if you got that bundle, chances are you packed that hard drive really fast. So I did want to talk and ask you guys if you guys use the fact that Nintendo allowed for external storage. I mean, they were really kind of the first company to do this, to offload storage to the customer, where, we may not offer you the 2 terabyte of storage that you want, but if you do want it, hey, you can go spend $50 on eBay and you can add it. It's up to you. I think it's a smart business practice, honestly. I know some people kind of look at it as, why should I have to pay for this if I'm paying for you? But I like it because in my mind, at least I like to think that it helps them make their product cheaper. But I had a 2 terabyte drive hooked up to my Wii U the day I bought it, and it was there until the day I traded it in. And it had a bunch of stuff on it. Did you guys use external hard drives?
I did not. I had always had the intention of, because I did have a mix of physical and digital games, but then I don't know, something always held me back from making, because I was like, I felt weird buying a hard drive so for far along in the life, what I perceived at the time to be the console's life cycle, to make it worth its effort. And I was like, I'd rather put this money here or there. And it was like, worst case, I could just buy physical games. And then I just kept dragging my feet, and lo and behold, I guess it was the right decision, because I could utilize the an external in some other way, shape, or form, but the one I had for my PC that I used for backups, actually this was for my laptop, went on the enclosure went on the fritz, so I just took the hard drive out and used that someplace else. But it's a shame. It was a necessity, though, especially, man, if you were unfortunate enough to get that white console. I mean, you're gonna fill that thing up so fast. Heck, even if you had think if you bought Smash Brothers, even if you had it on the disc, though, it has all those updates, and by the time that game patches and everything, I don't know how many gigs that takes up, but that's going to be a large bulk of your available space, especially since a lot of that is going to have to be reserved for the system itself. Then again, I just, if you're not in the know, I mean, without getting you've got to get the other bundle, because otherwise you're not getting the DDP, and you got to have that DDP in there.
Gotta have the DDP.
Gotta have that DDP. So
sponsored by DDP Yoga.
I forgot all about that. Kevin, what about you?
So for me, as I stated earlier, I didn't really do a ton of digital on the Wii U, so I didn't even have a need for it at any point. I still don't, even though I'm still playing the Wii U now. Just simply because I didn't do it now. I didn't even blink for a second to think about getting the white version of the console over the black one with 4 times the memory and Nintendo Land for $50. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's an easy deal. Like that was a no-brainer.
White one was terrible. The sticks fade.
Oh yeah, the discoloration. Yeah, it was terrible. So for me, it was a no-brainer. Went and pulled the trigger. I've never had to really delete much off there except for Wind Waker HD, because I did get that digital through a promotion. But other than that, every other digital experience I have on the Wii U, it's mostly indie stuff, smaller titles, so it's not as big a deal for me to have all stuff on my hard drive and not really worry about it. So if I did more digital, 100%, I would need more space, but at the time I didn't do much. But, going forward, who knows what the Switch is going to hold. That may be an option I'm going to need to utilize next time around.
The next topic or feature that I wanted to bring up was asynchronous gameplay, and I'm going to lop off TV play in there because they're related. I think this is where the naming and everything really kind of jumbled the message. Their whole asynchronous gameplay thing really bothered me. Why they just didn't call it dual screen gaming or the Wii DS or the DS Home or something like that. It would have made so much more sense if they had just said that. If it was called the DS Home and they talked about dual screen gaming, I think the Wii would have sold 10 million more units just by changing the name. They showcased a lot of things, most of which I actually would say I'm generally positive on. The problem that I have with kind of all of it is it's all kind of unrelated, and there's really no consistency. So the term asynchronous gaming really means dual screen gaming, and if you have a DS, this is customary to you. You have a map or an inventory or some sort of screen that you can use while you're playing without pausing the gameplay. Wii U kind of takes it a step further. A lot of games offered that type of support for single player, but Wii U took it a step further with co-op. So in Call of Duty Black Ops 2, for example, you could play couch co-op with split screen gaming, but instead of the game being split on your TV screen, one person gets to play with a controller and the TV, the other person gets to play on the gamepad. You could also do a very similar play with Batman 2, Lego Batman 2. You could play co-op together, Batman and Robin. One person has the TV and the other person has a gamepad. And then obviously Nintendo Land was built around this concept where one person on the gamepad is doing something that everybody else that's playing can't see or can't do. My biggest problem with the whole, really the general gist of the whole idea is that none of it was consistent. It seemed like every different game was doing something completely different with it, and I think that kind of hurts it because it really makes it feel gimmicky, and that's what it was. It was a gimmick, and unlike motion controls, it didn't stick, and it wasn't a hit. And I think the reason it didn't hit is because it wasn't the same. Motion controls were the same almost for every game. It was, hey, if you move your arm, something happens. This, you had to almost read an instruction manual for every game. It was like, well, how does this game do it? Oh, and it's different from that game. And this game does it, and it uses the gyro, but this one doesn't. I mean, don't even get me, weird when Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze completely didn't even use the gamepad at all. It's just off. It made you feel like your Wii U was broken. You're like, what's going on? It was mixed messaging from the beginning, and it never got better. As a fan of the DS and dual screen gaming, specifically for Zelda's, I really loved it, and I trepidly look forward as to what Zelda's going to be like without it. But I understand, and I think it's a sacrifice worth making. What that did kind of lead the way to, as the Wii U kind of sputtered along, though, was off-TV play, where you kind of see where the Switch is going, where a lot of people really enjoyed the Wii U because you could sit there and play a game while you watch TV. And specifically, with YouTube, I don't know if you guys ever use the YouTube app, you could watch YouTube and surf the web or have a game in the app. You could you could throw it up to the TV, throw it down to the gamepad, and open up another app while you were doing it. So I thought it was cool. Kevin, what do you think of asynchronous gameplay?
So I pretty much, like you said, it came off very much as a gimmick, and I only utilized it when I absolutely had to in a game where it was mandatory to make things work. As far as second screen stuff for inventory management and maps, like Zelda would do, it was a nice touch, but it didn't, for me, make or break anything for me. I was fine with having to, pause the game, have the menu pop up. It didn't really ruin anything for me. Is it easier? Absolutely. But overall, it didn't really change things for me. But I think where it did make a huge difference is probably for the younger gamers. It just makes things a little easier, less menus to go through to do stuff. It's like, hey, I want to use my boomerang. Cool. I'll just drag it over here and there. Now I can use the boomerang. It just made it more user-friendly, I think, overall. But you made a valid point where every developer kind of did their own thing with it. and that I think hurt it more than it helped it. The second screen experience, I think, needed to kind of be dictated to them as to, hey, this is what we're thinking, or drop some ideas or something. Obviously, you don't want to stifle the creativity of the developer or what they want to utilize it for, but I think a lot of them were just like, well, we have the screen and we have to use it somehow. Let's see what we can do. And it was very, very hit or miss as to whether or not it made sense, it worked, or it was necessary. So overall, I think you're right. It came off as pretty gimmicky. Off-screen gaming, absolutely loved it. If I was able to play a game and not interrupt the family watching TV, that was tons of fun. Or my wife falls asleep in bed and I'm playing, the Wii U, I can turn the TV off and play on my second screen. That part is amazing. I think that's what they're going to take to the Switch going forward. So I think they learned something from it, and I think this time they're going to dictate a little bit more as to what the second screen option can do and what it's designed for. And I think that's why the whole docking situation is blocked type deal. I think they're kind of just literally putting their foot down saying, okay, we saw what you guys did with the Wii U. We can't trust you to use this thing right, so now we're going to hold your hand going forward. So ultimately, like I said, not a make or break thing for me. It was nice when it worked, but unfortunately, I think the only times it really worked is when Nintendo did it themselves.
Yeah, I agree with you there too. I feel like the whole approach with the asynchronous gameplay is less is more. I think when the experience was built around supporting the game and not trying to be the game, because sometimes the execution really fell short. Like Donnie said, like having your inventory management in Zelda on there, or being have the map on there, huge. You don't have to sit there and go to a menu, look at it, go back. It just, not only does it take time and to load the menus and swap through things, but I mean it takes you away from the game experience too, and even that sometimes with the gamepad, you're breaking the game to look down at this gamepad and then go back up.
Kirby's Rainbow Course,
and it just, oh gosh, yeah. Now I have not personally played it, but I feel like if I recall it correctly, I always heard that wasn't Rayman like really good with the gamepad?
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to ask both of you to give me your best example of the asynchronous gameplay and your worst example. My best example, or my best example is probably Zombie U, which was built around it, and I think Ubisoft did it best, where it had a map, but you could toggle it through inventory, and there were specific gameplay moments in the game. Famously in the trailer, if you watch, you enter a keypad, and you have to enter the key in real time on the gamepad. So when you look at the TV, there's kind of like a mirror, and you can see zombies chasing you, and they're about to get you. And then to unlock a keypad, you have to enter it down, and it was very anxious, and you could never pause the game. So throughout the entire game, if you were changing inventory, going through your backpack, doing something, you were at risk. So every time you paused, you felt that tension, which I think made that game so good. I think that's really probably the best thing about that game. And I think other folks may not hear it, but that's what the port of that game lacks. That game on PlayStation and Xbox is not going to be the same because that's not there. I also think Deus Ex did it really well, and Rayman did it really well. So did Child of Light. In both Rayman and Child of Light, it was more or less the exact same. The other person playing with the gamepad could assist the player as they made their way through. So you could be the little firefly, and you could help drop items, bring things down. And in Child of Light, it's not a firefly. I don't think it's like I'm not sure what it is. The little glowy fairy nymph thing that flies around. My daughter and I co-opted that game together, and at the time she was 7, and it was her first like RPG, and I do believe it was the first game that she beat, even though I beat it, I helped her with it, but she helped me, she assisted me in battle and stuff by using little firefly and helping me out. So both of those games are great uses of it. The one that constantly haunts me is I have no idea why Mojang did not include touchscreen inventory control for Minecraft. I mean, it is, and I know I know Minecraft came late, but you have Cube Life, and the other one, I can't remember it, but there were clones of Minecraft, and they all used it, and they were great. And my kids liked Minecraft. They played it on PlayStation before it came to Wii U, and when it came to Wii U, because they already had these other experiences, it was the number one thing they said: why can't I do this on the touchscreen? They absolutely hated that you had to hit a button to open up the menu and then click around to craft, when in the other game you could just drag. You could drag and drop, and that was a big missed opportunity.
As for off-screen play, I used that. Wow, a lot. I used it a lot. I played a lot of games off that, so that was a huge feature that I loved and that I'm looking forward to continuing playing games that way with the Switch. It's just, I don't know. There's some games like were a mixed bag, like Wonderful 101 still is a little bit mixed bag for me. I still think it's better to play with the gamepad than with the controller. But then there's other things that, I don't know, like Star Fox, I feel like, is an execution of where, you're kind of forcing things on there, and you're having to, try to look at this gamepad, but then there's all this stuff going on the screen, and you're constantly having to go back and forth. And let's face it, nobody's going to play the game like Miyamoto wants you to in the videos where he's holding it straight out in front of him, and you can easily look at the TV and the gamepad at the same time.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen.
It's funny how Star Fox Zero, the game, was a poor implementation of the gamepad, and then Star Fox Guard, the pack-in little minigame, was a great implementation of the game.
Exactly.
That game came bundled with a good and poor example of how to and how not to use the gamepad.
Yep.
I got two more topics. One we'll talk about. The other one's just kind of a throw in there. But the next one, and the big one, is the power of Amiibo. Jason, how many Amiibo do you have?
I have, let's see, there's 3 in front of me now. There's 1 in my nightstand. There's 1 in my closet still in this box. Falco, I still haven't freed you, even though I promised I don't know how many times on this podcast. And I have a Rob at work. So let's see, that is 1, 2, 3, I have 6. I have 6 Amiibo.
I have over 40 Amiibo. Whew. And I love every one of them, and I traded in my Wii U. For folks that haven't listened to the podcast, go listen to the last few. You'll find out why. I'm not getting rid of my Amiibo. Not at all. And that's not even because the Switch supports them, because I love the Amiibo. And they were a huge success because I do think a lot of people like me just wanted cool Mario figures. It's great.
Yeah,
desk ornaments.
How often do you use them as actual Amiibo?
I would say I think I use them more than most would expect. And I am the Nintendo gamer and like the huge nut and stuff. But I actually typically enjoy using them. Like I'm using them for Mario Party. I use them on the 3DS games. I use them in Twilight Princess. I use them in Smash. Oh, man. I remember when we first got Smash in the Amiibo support, which we'll cover the games. But, I mean, we used Amiibo almost exclusively for like the first month. I wanted to give it credit because Amiibo was such a huge hit. Probably the biggest success of the Wii U's generation, everything included, probably is Amiibo. I don't know how they keep it going because they're kind of running into an issue where once you buy Mario, you're good. It's like how can they keep selling you Mario? But I mean, I still have, I've got all the Zelda Amiibos pre-ordered. I've got like 4 or 5 more Amiibo coming.
Oh, nice.
I've got the ones coming from Breath of the Wild, and then the new releases and the Retrobit Link. I've got all those.
Yeah, I would like the Zelda ones. I just have Link, but I would really like all the Zeldas.
Smash Link was terrible.
Yeah, he is.
But, Amiibo, I give Nintendo credit because the Wii U was being developed and more or less came out right when that Toys to Life craze was getting going. And I do think they came late. Skylanders and Infinity really had especially Skylanders kind of had a stranglehold on the market at the time, but there's no denying that Nintendo definitely cut themselves a piece of that pie with the launch of Amiibo. I mean, the Amiibo craze and how hard it was to find the ones that you wanted, and even some today are still really rare and hard to get. I mean, that was a huge bonus for them, and I give them credit for putting the NFC chip in the gamepad. I mean, that was something that they had built in for launch. It's a little unfortunate it took them as long as it did to get it out for something that was built in at launch, but I do give them credit for the success of it. I'm trying to think. I mean, the Amiibo thing was really cool. I'm trying to think what's the best game that I used it for. I mean, most of the time it was just DLC unlocks.
Yeah, like I used for Mario Kart, getting the costumes.
Yep,
exactly. I think probably Smash is probably still the most. At least you get the most out of.
I use them a lot
Amiibo.
In Hyrule Warriors. Because, you can scan one, every day and get something. And then I also use them a lot. You're going to have to help me remember the title here. What was the name of that game? It was like NES Remix before NES Remix came out.
Oh, yeah. Was it...
it's like Amiibo Shuffle or something, but...
Yeah. That's
It was Amiibo.
It wasn't Shuffle. That's
Yeah,
not
where
the
you
name
just-
of it. But I know that that's not the name of it. But it was something like that. I completely forget about
Yeah,
it.
you just go and plug in you plug in your Amiibo and you get to play a little demo of whatever and then it would take you right to the eShop if you wanted to buy the game.
I loved that. I really did. I felt like it was it added value for having the Amiibo. To be honest, I was like, "Oh, cool! I bought this thing. I got a costume in Mario Kart. I got a character in Smash, and now I get to play, a level of Metroid or a level of Balloon Fight or whatever." And I thought that was really
Yeah.
neat. So I really liked that.
Amiibo Tap.
Amiibo Tap. There you go.
Yep. Amiibo
I liked
tab.
that. I really enjoyed that. Kevin, we're talking
Yeah,
about
that's cool.
Amiibo and how much of a boon it was for the Wii U, and more or less how I thought it was a really good play on their part to make sure that the NFC reader was a part of the gamepad. And even though I think the Amiibo support came late, the fact that when it did come, it was a huge hit.
Oh yeah, I mean, Amiibo took the world by storm. I mean, they still, like you'd mentioned, a lot of them are still kind of hard to find for the most part. Like, I mean, there's numerous ones I've never seen in person myself. So I have 13, 14 of them myself, and I stopped buying them a little while ago. But now that I'm seeing them more and more in stores, I'm probably gonna start picking up the ones I really wanted. But I think they're great. They add a good value. They don't make or break any game. It's not like you had to have Amiibo, with the exception of like Animal Crossing Amiibo festivals. Like the only one you had to have Amiibo. I think Mario Party 2 as well. But nothing else you had to have them. But they gave you nice little bonuses for having it, which is a nice little touch. Made you feel that you didn't just spend the $12, $13 on, as you said, a desk ornament. As cool as they are looking, most of them, it gave you a little bit more value there. So you can't really complain saying, "Oh, okay, I bought this thing. It's really cool. It's sitting on my desk. It helped me with one game, and then 2 years later, you can use that on another game." Or in the event of the Animal Crossing New Leaf expansion, the Amiibos are given a whole new life all over again. Even in the card format. So not even talking about the figures themselves. But yeah, it was definitely a smart move. And I remember when the Wii U launched, they mentioned the NFC thing. I'm like, well, what is this ever going to be used for? And then the 3DS had the NFC, and it's like, okay. But yeah, it was kind of just, then they dropped the Amiibo, and you're like, oh, okay, now they're onto something here.
I remember when it was first showcased, and it was before the launch happened, before that E3 in 2011. It was an investor meeting, and they showcased the NFC reader, and I think they were talking about using it for like payments. Like you were going to be able to buy like a prepaid card or like a credit card or like a Bitcoin something in Japan. I remember reading blogs about it. There was like a Japan form of currency that you could swipe over the gamepad and make digital purchases with it. And the fact that I never saw anything like that ever happen, and then Amiibo came, I thought was really cool.
Do you remember this is kind of backtracking a little bit, but we talked about how Nintendo takes an idea that didn't really work and then turns it into something that works later on. Do you remember the Game Boy Advanced e-reader cards?
I don't, but you told me about them on a previous podcast, and I looked them up, and yeah, you're right. I mean, they recycle a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, it worked. It certainly, like, now you can tap one Amiibo and you get, whatever quote-unquote DLC pops in. But before, like, if you wanted to play, I don't know, the original Donkey Kong, you had to have these cards, and it took like 10 of them, and you just swipe them all in, and if it didn't read something right, you had to start all over again from scratch. But it was the same thing where it was like, okay, you're just swiping this card, but it's adding content somehow, and now the Amiibo is kind of the perfected form of that, if they can make a decent figure.
Gosh, I remember before they were announced, and I remember looking at the gamepad today. I'm like, what the heck is this little symbol for? Like, what does that even? What does that even do? Like, what am I not utilizing on this thing?
Yep.
Does it have superpowers? What's going on?
Lastly, we covered it in our Twilight Princess review, but Jason, I really enjoyed Twilight Princess inclusions of Amiibo, and it's something that I kind of hope is continued on with future Zelda games, whether it be remasters or Breath of the Wild. In Twilight Princess, you could scan Zelda for hearts, and you could scan Link for arrows, and you could scan Ganon for like a master quest or like a hard mode. I thought it was cool. It's not, like you said, it doesn't make or break the game, and it's definitely, it doesn't really change it. But the fact that you had something that you could do with them that kind of played into the game, I thought was awesome, and I enjoyed it.
I just want to say before you jump on to let's face it. I mean, what Amiibo did, which is a no-brainer, and I think everyone knew going into it, is Nintendo fans just want cool little Nintendo things of the things they love to display.
Absolutely.
I mean, how many people, I'm going to get rich hoarding these Amiibo, and they just sit in a box, So how many people are going to have like these whole collections that are never going to be open?
I met one of those people, unfortunately.
No, I just like to touch them every once in a while. Hold my precious in its hands.
Smell them. You smell them, sniff them.
My last topic, guys, was the rounded discs. I don't know if anybody really cared, but those Wii U discs were weird and odd, and they felt very comfortable. And it's a dumb thing, but I thought it was really neat. I don't know why they decided to do that, or if it did anything to, I don't know, cost improvement, quality, insurance. I don't know, but it was definitely odd. It was just a very Nintendo.
Think of the children, Donnie. Think of the children.
But that's it, Kevin.
All right, then. So that brings us. So now we talked about how the Wii U launched and what it launched with and all that good stuff and the features. So now it's time to talk about what Nintendo generally does best, and that's the games. So when Nintendo launched, I'm going to go ahead and say this now. Looking at the list, this is probably the worst launch lineup in the history of gaming. Other than maybe the Virtual Boy. Might have that beaten. But just to kind of really run down kind of quickly and go over some of the titles that were featured that you could buy in-store on launch day. You had Call of Duty Black Ops 2, Skylanders Giants, Transformers, Wipeout, Disney's Epic Mickey, FIFA 13, Tekken Tag Tournament, New Super Mario Wii U, good game there, Ninja Gaiden 3, Nintendo Land Sing Party, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, Darksiders 2, Assassin's Creed 3, Just Dance, Rabbids Land, Your Shape, Fitness Evolved, ESPN Sports Collection, Zombie U, also good game, Scribblenauts Unlimited, Game Party Champions, Batman Arkham City Armored Edition. And that was your launch lineup. So
What real quick? What was like?
Yeah.
What were like? Was there like a first party launch game for the Wii?
Wii Sports. And Twilight
We
Princess.
had Wii Sports. See, this is
And Twilight
this
Princess.
Is the thing. Twilight Princess
Yeah.
out. Okay, because that's
Yeah.
the thing that always baffles me about Nintendo is like, why don't they launch these systems with a Zelda or a Mario?
Well, they had
Why?
Super Mario Bros. U. I love that game.
Yeah, I get. Okay. I haven't played it, so I can't throw shade at
Oh,
it.
you should.
'Cause
You definitely should.
I've only played 3D World, but
trying to see what launched with the Wii. So you had Wii Sports, you had Wii Play, you had a WarioWare title launched with it, Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, Super Monkey Ball, which had a lot of success on the GameCube. Madden,
That's a lot
Call
of
Duty
third party
3.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of third party stuff. Some of them really good third party stuff.
just
that
I was
I'm
just
looking at.
curious. So
Yeah. So I mean, yes, it had some gems there.
But it wasn't. It's not as bad as it reads. When I'm sitting
what
here.
the heck is ESPN Sports?
Oh
Connection?
god, that game
Yeah,
and Game
I
Party
mean-
Champions are those
Is that even a
games
game?
are awful.
I just imagine you
Well,
boot up
hey-
a disc and it gives you like the ESPN score ticker feed on your screen.
No, it's just the titles were either remnants of the shovelware that was coming out at the end of the Wii
Yeah.
life cycle, and then there were some decent gems in there. Like, New Super Mario
It
U
was
was
really
great. Zombie U I loved as well.
Batman Arkham City is best on Wii U, and that is even over the new.
And I know
ones.
you said it.
Like even over the remasters.
I know you've said it, but here's the thing. At the time that it
I
came
know.
out, everybody already
I
played
know.
Arkham City. So if you'd never played it, sure, I get it. It's probably great. But I had already played it.
The gamepad stuff on it was really good.
Right. But once again, it's a little too late.
And Sonic All-Stars Racing Transformed is great. It's really good on Wii U. I'm sitting here looking at this list, man. It's not good. Tekken Tag Tournament was okay. It was a decent launch title.
I didn't remember that being out, but
And I played Assassin's Creed 3 on Wii U. And that was back at the time
Never heard of
when it launched. That was as good as its counterparts.
yeah, I will 100% give it that. Darksiders as well. I think that plays just as well on the Wii U as it did on the PS3 and Xbox. So I give it that. So like I said, I mean, there was some stuff that was either available on multi-platforms, and while it may have added features, often it was released well after the game had already been out. So it has a certain niche market it can really hit at that point. And then the biggest thing to talk about too is you go forward and the games throughout the years. I mean, Nintendo had great success with their first party lineup, as they generally always do. But that's really what drove the console. You saw things like Call of Duty drop out of the picture. You saw sports games almost entirely drop out of the picture.
Yep.
Well,
With the exception of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games.
Sports games absolutely did. Call of Duty stuck around for
Yeah.
a little bit. I mean, the Blops games came, and then so did Ghost. And I played Ghost on Wii U. I feel like we're missing one, and I could be off by maybe like a few months. But there's one third-party game that I feel like was in launch window that was really good that's not represented on the list that you created, and that's Need for Speed.
Let me check. I have...
That Need for Speed
check,
game was great on Wii U, and it was beautiful. That's the one thing that I remember about that game. And I'm sure if you even Googled it, I think most blog posts would be the first thing you'd see about it was, for some odd reason, I don't know what they did or how they did it, or that was probably the best developed like third-party game for Wii U. May have been that Need for Speed game because it ran and looked beautiful on Wii U, outshining its counterparts. I mean, definitely took advantage. That and Deus Ex, and I know Deus Ex I think came that summer, but Deus Ex was also great on Wii U. But I don't want to get too far away from the conversation. You're right. I mean, the launch lineup sucked. I mean, they have Disney, Epic Mickey, and I played that ESPN game, Jason.
I just looked at a video of it. It's like a very, very poor man's Wii Sports.
See, that when I watched it,
which that's saying something right there.
Oh, this is going to be good. It's going to be Wii Sports, but with like Western sports, like football. And then you play it, and you're like, oh, this is terrible. I mean, it was really bad. Just Dance was good. My daughter played Just Dance forever.
It's funny too. So like when I initially looked up the launch titles, quote unquote, there's a lot of things, like you said. The Need for Speed definitely came later. It wasn't available day one, but Nintendo tried to include like the first 8 months as the launch window, which for me, no, I'm sorry. I'll give you a month, maybe 2, but in my mind, those aren't launch titles. Launch means it came out with it, not it was available 2 or 3 months down the line. That's just me. But yeah, these titles listed here were kind of the first.
They were
things out the gate, which didn't necessarily bode well. However,
we're missing the Wonderful 101.
That came later, though. That wasn't launched.
I remember playing it before it came out. Like before the Wii U came out, I played that game, and I played Scribblenauts too.
Well, I played Scribblenauts on the DS, and that I like the Scribblenauts games, but it just wasn't. It wasn't highlighting the Wii U over like the 3DS. So yeah, Wonderful 101 launched August the year after.
So I've told the story, and I'll just do the Cliff Notes version, but I actually played a preview event before it was released, like in August. And the Wonderful 101 was there. So in my mind, like that was a launch game. I was like, oh yeah, I played that game before I even got my hands on the Wii U. But
yeah, it was unveiled in E3 the year before, and then didn't launch until August the following year.
Good lord.
See, that's the problem. That's the problem. The Wii U software, it was so few and far between. You might sit there and think like, oh my god, we had these great games, and you
it
go
took
back
a while.
Like, there was a lot of time in between. But I mean, there were a lot of games that came out, but there were few and far between. You had a few every year, but once again, it was driven, I mean, primarily heavily by Nintendo.
It was a first and second party box. I will say, it took them a year to get going. And I remember the infamous quote. I believe it was from Satoru Iwata. I think it was at an investors meeting. I believe he said that, they were like, where are the games? Why do we have this long, space between games? And he really said that the upgrade from doing games from SD to HD really kind of threw off their development timelines. Because this was their first HD console. Whereas Microsoft and Sony, they had been working on 360 and PlayStation 3 for years by the time this came up, And this was like their kind of first jump into this new market. And, the delays that first year, I mean, Pikmin, that was E3 shown, like, title and everything. And boy, it took a long time for Pikmin to come.
I'm trying to check through this list here. So I have a list in front of me. I don't have the exact numbers, though, but I'm looking at the list of all the exclusive titles to Wii U. And looking at them, and you figure, because we've talked about the different features the Wii U has, the second screen options and motion controls and all those type of things, you'd think more companies would try and jump in and do something with it. But looking at the actual console exclusive titles, I mean, I'm going to sit here and say about 90% of them are produced by Nintendo. You have a couple from Ubisoft, you have a couple from Namco Bandai, a few from Sega, and it's all Nintendo. Even when you boil it down, Bayonetta 2 was still published by Nintendo.
Yep.
So it wasn't developed, but it was published by Nintendo. So Nintendo literally say, okay, we'll go ahead and release this to get it out here. And then you have the couple shovelware things, Funky Barn, Family Party, 30 Great Games, like more of that shovelware stuff we saw come off the Wii. But you had tons of highlights. So let's move on to, we're going to talk about our favorite games later on, but when people sit there and say, "Oh, there's no good games on the Wii U," I think that's completely ridiculous because there are a ton. Yes, you got to sift through some stuff to get it, but I mean, you have your Bayonettas, you have your Captain Toad, you have Donkey Kong. We've talked about your Zelda games. Anything with Mario on it is pretty much a winner, or Luigi on it is pretty much a winner. And even some gems that Nintendo was just releasing back now as the classics. The Selects collection, Pikmin 3. That's a game I know very few people that actually played it, but I'm telling you, it is one of the best games out there on the Wii U, hands down. Visually, even though it was one of the earlier games, yes, it was delayed by like a year, but it still is, in my opinion, actually, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think it's the best looking Wii U game that's out there, and it rivals stuff you see on the PS4 and Xbox One, despite it being quote unquote severely underpowered versus them. And I think that's the thing there too, is like, yes, you're not going to find your multiple iterations of Assassin's Creed on the Wii U. You're not going to find there were some Call of Duty, but you're not going to find your Battlefields. You're not going to find your Fallout games. You're not going to find your Batman games, with the exception of that one. Yes, you're not going to get the stuff on the Wii U, but that's okay because the stuff you can only get on your Wii U, in my mind at least, more than makes up for it.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. It's just got the games that available there that you can't really experience anywhere else. I mean, everything I played. I mean, I think that's why I got a Wii U. I mean, if I look back at, I was on the fence for the longest time, and it was right. It was just because of some of I think it was only the first party stuff, but I was like, oh, I want to play those games, and that's how I'm going to do it. I don't know. It just Nintendo hits a tone for. They definitely have a specific audience. It's unfortunate though, like they don't have they have a very strong library, but not quite enough there to satiate a complete console on their own. They're so close, very close, but it's just not possible. And unfortunately, they lost that support from their third parties and even their second parties right out shortly. I mean, people talk about we've got all these third party support for the Switch, but Wii U had pledged support at the start too, and then it quickly went into fairy dust pixel magic into the air.
Well, I agree with you too. So hold on, before I pass it off to you, Donnie, you're right. It's all the third parties were there, and they said they wanted it. And the thing we have to remember, we've touted this numerous times on the Nintendo Shack episodes and everything, is that Nintendo is not trying to compete with PS4 and compete with Xbox One. Even if you take away all second and third party support and hold up just the first party libraries, Nintendo has outsold both of the others as far as first party is concerned, and they're also higher rated than the first party ones, rather. So not necessarily outsold, but they're critically received much better than some of the exclusives on the competing consoles. And that's what people have to remember, is Nintendo was always meant to be, at this point, and they've accepted this role fully, that they're a supplemental gaming console. You buy Nintendo to play Nintendo games. You don't necessarily buy it to play your Call of Duty. You don't necessarily buy it to play these other experiences. Sure, some of them you can, and I know they're going to try and do it again with the Switch, but honestly, I wouldn't be entirely surprised if we see a repeat of what happened. The Nintendo platform is really, as far as second and third parties, what they need to think about is that it is a tool for them to experiment and do something different, do something more creative, do something they can't necessarily do or want to do on these other consoles. And that's when you find these unique experiences, when the exclusives, whether it's first, second, or third party, those can make the difference. I mean, if I go back and think about the DS library, prior to the 3DS, and you think about the Wii library, there are games we haven't seen come again that I absolutely love. Trauma Center, which was developed by Atlas. It was a hospital game, but you did like surgery and stuff like that using motion controls. I love those games. Never saw them again. They went away. I think there's 2 on the DS, 1 on the Wii, and there was dust. You see things like Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney. There's no reason that can't come to a console. That sells very well on the 3DS, but you would never see it on a PS4 or an Xbox. And that's where Nintendo needs to be there. And the third parties need to understand that should be their home for these titles. If a developer has a great idea and you're like, oh, that's never going to sell millions and millions of copies cross-platform with PS4 and Xbox One, but if it's a good idea, put it on Nintendo because they will do well. They'll get highlighted. Nintendo likes those niche games, and they'll also help you promote it. They're always, forward thinking and they're willing to promote these titles that aren't necessarily developed by them. But before I get too far, go ahead, Donnie, take it away. What are your thoughts so far on the library, basically, and how people perceive Nintendo to be?
There's so many thoughts, and I've got so much to say on what both of you just covered. All right, I'm going to try to remember this. First point, Kevin, I think it's disingenuous for you to say that they don't want to compete. They are a video game company. They are publicly traded. They do have investors and they do have shareholders to answer to. They absolutely want to sell more Switches than PS4s. They are in the video game market. I do believe what you're trying to say. Satoru Iwata actually was quoted and answered. He said they're not good at it. He absolutely came out and said, we're not very good at competing with PlayStation and Xbox. And what I think is a cultural shift. PlayStation and Xbox often take, because they have a subscription service, because they take on first-party development, because they're in this arms race with each other, they take losses on hardware sales. They operate differently. Nintendo doesn't take losses on hardware sales. They sell all hardware at a profit, whereas PlayStation and Xbox will rely on third parties to pad out the cycle. Nintendo looks at first party to prop up the platform to create a market for third party. And when that platform is successful, like the DS and the Wii, you see tons of third-party support. Everybody and their mother wants to put a game out on a Nintendo console. And when that first-party support does not create the market, you see them go away. So I don't think Nintendo needs to do anything other than provide an opportunity for third parties to make money. As long as they're doing that, I think third-party support will be there. Jason, you pointed out, that Nintendo can't prop up a console single-handedly with first party. I disagree, and I think that's where the Switch really stands apart, because now they have a unified platform where they can publish first-party content from both a portable and a home console side to one platform. I actually think they can support 100% if the Switch has nothing but first-party titles. If they give you everything that they give Wii U and DS over a 5-year period, I think that platform would be 100% worth owning. I also think that if that's the case, and they give you everything that their development studios have on both console and portable on the Switch, I think they will create that market for third parties to find some value. My point that I had as you guys were talking about the library was the Wii U was very special to me for what Nintendo was able to do with indie studios and the Nindies, as they kind of deemed them. Because you're absolutely right, Kevin. People did not buy a Wii U to play Call of Duty. And that is the stigma that Nintendo will have a hard time changing or transforming, is the fact that Nintendo gamers like myself, I have a PlayStation 4, and typically I'm going to buy a Call of Duty on that because it runs better, it's got more power, it does these things that the Nintendo console won't do. I feel like the Switch can combat it because it's portable, and that really throws a wrench into it, because even though I can play it in beautiful 4K, if I can take it on the go, that sell, depending on the game, like let's say for Skyrim, for example, I was super excited for Skyrim Remastered. The moment that it was even rumored or hinted that it could come to the Switch, I completely held off. I'm not buying it because I want to know if it's coming for the Switch, because the idea that I could play that game on the go means more to me than playing it as pretty as it could possibly be on my PlayStation 4, Xbox One. So they've got some way to combat it with the Switch. They've got some things to offer third parties that the others don't. So while I still think they are competing, they're just competing differently. They're providing a different avenue of success for third parties, which I always think that's in Nintendo's best interest. But back to the indie support, because the Wii U was not the success, largely from what I believe is due to the messaging and the first year support, it really paved the way for Nindies to have a lot of success on Wii U. And boy, did they ever. I can't think of a console that I've owned, including my PlayStation 4, which I have a lot of indie games downloaded through my subscription service. I mean, I played a lot of indie games on Wii U, a ton of them, through the DDP promotion, as well as the fact that they were featured and spotlighted at E3 during Nintendo Directs. I mean, they were brought in. A lot of them, you almost felt like they were a part of the first or second party stable. Shovel Knight was a time exclusive for Wii U. It came out first on Wii U, and I think it was there for like a year. Like, we had it way out in front of most folks. I loved that game, and it was great. Shovel Knight was incredible. One of the best games this generation has to offer so far. Other games that immediately come to mind, Affordable Space Adventures, again, Child of Light, which is Ubisoft, but still a smaller team, smaller developer. It kind of fits in the indie mold. Rumbo is one of my favorite games on the Wii U platform. Cube Life, Fast Racing Neo. I mean, there's a lot of games out there. SteamWorld Dig, SteamWorld Heist that I really dug into, and because the third party wasn't present, and I wouldn't say wasn't present as much as I would say didn't have an avenue for success. Because Call of Duty couldn't sell 10 million units on the Wii U and chose to abandon it, it really opened up an opportunity for Jules Watson to come in with Mutant Muds and sell a game. And not only sell a game, but get spotlight. Like, I felt like I got to learn and know and interact with some of these smaller indie studios that, as we started our blog, I think paved the way. I mean, Kevin, you got, what's the 13 a.m. game you got? The Pirate Pop. I was going to say like 3D Pop or something. Pirate Pop. The reason we reached out for that game and the reason I wanted you to play it is because I loved Rumbo and loved 13 a.m. games. Mm-hmm. And I will forever keep following them because I met them on Nintendo. And I'm not saying that you can't do that on other consoles, but I am saying if you were just a Wii U owner, you were probably paying more attention to these studios and these projects than you were on PlayStation 4 or Xbox One. I do feel like on those platforms, because there's so much, that they get lost and they kind of get dropped by the wayside. Like Zeo Drifter, for one, from Jules Studio. I mean, there was just a lot of those games that I really. And no, they didn't prop up the library, but, they really did pad it out. There were indie games that I looked forward to, like waited on. I was like, oh man, I got 2 months until I get my hands on Child of Light. I can't wait. I don't think those owners of other systems were doing the same. And then in terms of the library overall, like I said, it took a long time for them to get started. And I ultimately think that's probably where the console met its demise, was the fact that it just support out of the gate wasn't there. But once they got going, like 2014, 2015, man, the Nintendo engine cranked out some of the best games I've played this generation. And all of the exclusives and everything. If you were to ask me, Donnie, what's the 25 best games you've played since 2012, I would guarantee you at least 10, if not 15 of those games are probably Wii U games.
Well, speaking of those games and the demise and the last stand, if you will, of the Wii U, it's time to hand things over to Jason to get us nice and depressed to talk about the whole downfall of the Wii U. Sir, take it away.
Yes. Dark times, my friends. The clouds have spread across the Mushroom Kingdom, and the fire and brimstone, it rains upon thee. Unfortunately, it's not all good things, my friends, because we will talk about the drought, which refers to a dark time when the Wii U lacked pretty much anything. And everything. We're going to call this is going to be the date from November 18th, 2012, which marks the release of Mario Bros. U. It wasn't again until August of 2013 that we saw Pikmin. And then there were no other major releases during this time. The only other things of note we saw was Lego City Undercover and Super Luigi Bros. And that's almost 9 months following a console launch date. So I mean, there's just nothing exclusive at all in there. I mean, how does this happen? Like, I can't imagine if I had the system, how I would be processing that. I mean, it just seems right there is when you lose your player base, where they're like, well, I guess I want to keep playing games, and then like, well, I haven't ever had an Xbox, and then off you go. And then we, as Nintendo enthusiasts or apologists, go, well, that's why we say Nintendo is not a primary system. It's a good complementary thing to have, and it's just unfortunate. I wasn't. You guys witnessed this firsthand. I was not I was on a Wii U owner at the time. What was that like for you guys? That you actually had the console at that time?
Well, I will tell you that was a rough period. So I had gotten it actually. So I didn't get it at launch, but I got it very close to launch. So a lot of that drought was right in my wheelhouse, and part of the selling point on it was telling my wife that, hey, Pikmin 3 is coming on this thing. So she's like, all right, go ahead and go get it. Pikmin 3 didn't almost come out for like a year later at that point. So it was a long, long time. And it just sat there. I think the only games I had for I think in between during that drought period was Nintendo Land, obviously, because it came with it. I had new Super Mario Bros. U. I had Zombie U, and I had I had the Lego City Undercover. Those were the only games I had until Pikmin 3 launched. So there was just a lot of angry glares. Why did you buy this thing? There's nothing to play on it, and you're still just sitting here playing your PS3 more than you're playing the Wii U. And that's kind of where it was for a long time until the drought kind of got past, and then we started getting some good titles coming out, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, I mean, it came out. I was like, oh, this is great. Played it a lot, and then it just sat there for months. So I don't know. How about you, Donnie?
It was the nail in the coffin. I really remember this because at the time I was going to my local GameStop almost daily because I was really close friends with everybody that worked there, and boy, was I taking it on the chin. And
I can imagine.
I mean, there was nothing I could do, but I mean, so we already covered how terrible that launch lineup was. So imagine that launch lineup is that's your backlog. Yeah, not a whole lot there. And then you get Lego City, which was delayed. And then when you finally get it, as much as I think it's a good game, it was a letdown. It was kind of marketed as this PG GTA, and which it kind of was, and it's got a stupid story that's funny to follow. But technically, the load times were atrocious. The pop-in was awful.
God.
I mean, it just wasn't. It felt kind of unfinished or not optimized. And then Super Luigi U wasn't even a standalone game at the time, if you guys remember. That was DLC only for like a year.
That's what
Yeah, so you had to have Mario Bros. U. And if you had a Wii U and didn't have Mario Bros. U at this time, I kind of feel like you weren't doing it right.
You weren't going to get it.
So I kind of just kept playing the same games. I think I beat Zombie U during this time. I had NBA, which ran terribly on the Wii U, by the way. Talk about and some sports games were decent, like Madden. Madden was okay. It didn't look amazing, but the fact that you could draw plays and that it reacted was kind of cool. NBA's frame rate was awful. It wasn't even 30. It was probably like 15 frames per second. I mean, and seriously, it was terrible. It was awful. Almost embarrassingly bad. I would have rather them just put out like NBA Jam. And then outside of that, I just kept playing Mario U in hopes that something was coming. This killed the console. It absolutely killed it. It didn't matter what Nintendo or third party or anybody threw at it after this. How do you launch a console and get people to buy it when you haven't released a game for it in almost 9 months following its launch? It's not like the Wii, 2011, where it had been on the market for 6 years, and it's like, they're not going to release anything for it because they're prepping for the new one. Well, we learned that prep kind of was terrible. Now, my only hope is that they learned their lesson, and President Kimishima, Satoru Iwata's successor, he's went on public record saying that the Switch was delayed to make sure that this never happened again. So I can only take him at his word and hope that's not the case. But if the Switch has anything like this, I mean, it will suffer the same fate. You can't do this. You can't launch a console with 3 games and a bunch of shovelware and then, hey, we'll see you next year. You can't do that. Nothing will survive that.
Right. Well, it's like, Nintendo heard the outcry because they decided, and as you alluded, Donnie, there was at least a bright patch on the horizon. Nintendo realized that they really, they messed up with this first year and this huge drought of software, and then all of a sudden we saw this big push and a steady feed of doctor recommended first party content flowing into the system, starting that right around the holidays of 2013. Just going in release order, we saw in November Super Mario 3D World came out. Then in February we had Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. May brought us Mario Kart 8, NES Remix 2, a great indie and Child of Light, or not an indie, but I guess it's technically indie.
I think so.
June we got Shovel Knight, Guacamelee. The quick start menu, which I forgot wasn't even a thing the entire life of the console. October brought us Bayonetta 2, and then the coup de grace in November, Super Smash Bros, as well as Amiibo, which if that's not going to jumpstart anything, I don't know what could. And this is when I came on board, because I remember I had my regular conversation with Brian Walden and Donnie about Nintendo, and I was like, oh, I don't know. and I don't know if it's worth it. And then this is like right when Mario Kart came out, and it's like, oh, I really would love to play Mario Kart. That looks good. And there's just like this digital deluxe promotion where I can get this money back on digital games. I got this jar of change. I've talked about the change jar so many times on the show. I got this jar of change just sitting there. What the heck? Let's do it. So like when I came on board, I was like, look at all these great games coming. This is amazing. Why isn't this more popular? This gamepad isn't that weird to understand. Da-da-da. And I'm like, oh, Club Nintendo. There's like physical stuff I get too. This is amazing. Little did I know. But I mean, this is a great time. I mean, like Mario Kart 8 was right there, and just, it was like just when Mario Kart was starting to die down, then like Nintendo's like, hey, how about we give you guys some DLC from Mario Kart? And if you buy it right now, you get it for like what, like a decent discount.
It was like $10, and it like doubled the game.
Doubled the game with tracks and characters and carts, and then I just remember the hype waiting for Smash Brothers, and I mean just what that game had, the sheer amount of content in there, everything that was coming. And I mean, and this just kind of carried over, from November into the next year. Well, I think what was it, November, and then that following. What did Splatoon come out? Like May, I think, May or April of 2015.
Yeah, it was shown at that E3, and it was demoed just that one stage, and then
it came out of nowhere. We're like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Wind Waker HD.
Wind Waker. I mean, that's how when I got my system, that's all I had. I had Mario Kart 8, Wind Waker, which right there are two great games, and we have Zumba Fitness Evolved.
Jason,
so, I mean,
Jason, did you not know the Wii U before the Quick Start menu?
Yes, I did have it before the Quick Start.
I was going to say, because if you didn't, you don't know the long suffering. And it may sound stupid to think of something being so trivial. That Quick Start menu changed the game. I mean, the Wii U, when I first brought it home, that first day, when you hit the power button, it took like 3 minutes to get into anything that you could actually do. Seriously, like 3 minutes. It took forever. And the idea that, again, going back to the TV thing, the idea that you were going to turn on something and wait 3 minutes to watch TV or play a game, it was awful. I loved that Quick Start menu. It was like probably my favorite OS update ever. I was like, oh, okay, I turn on the gamepad, it instantly pops up, and I can launch a game from here. This is perfect. Like, why don't other systems do this? Like, I know that like they have like System Resume, but even the other ones, I've got to click through and get into things and boot the OS. It's like I just want to play the game. Just the last game you played. Do you want to play it again? Yes.
Yeah, there it is. I'll tell you what, I have quite the routine when it comes between how long it takes my TV to switch inputs and booting up the console. So it's like you boot up the console first, then hit the TV button. Then while the console's booting up, you switch the inputs. So by the time the input switches over, you might be at everyone's favorite little plaza there. But, as good as these games were, we know that great adoption rate that Mario Kart 8 had across the install base. Smash Brothers sold great. It still wasn't enough to keep up with the rest of the industry. But let's reminisce here a little bit, guys. What are your thoughts on we'll call the last stand of the Wii U and the quality of these games that came out during that time period?
Well, Nintendo tried. I mean, there's no faulting them there. They tried. They tried to jumpstart it, and I feel like, they did the same thing with DS or 3DS, and it worked. And with Wii U, it didn't work. They thought they had time. They're like, we've got time, we'll make it good, and we'll just have an awesome lineup of first parties, and everybody will come back. Except, this all happened while PlayStation, Xbox were launching new consoles with new games with better, graphics that had never been seen before. If this happened the year before, then the Wii U may have suffered a different fate. I still stand by the fact that if the Wii launched with Mario Maker instead of Nintendo Land, we'd be talking about a different console. Just one game. The Mario Maker sells the Wii U concept better than any game that they've ever made.
I could see that.
2014 was the year where all that taking it on the chin during the drought, that's where I was dealing it back. I do believe in this year, I think I sold more Wii U's than Nintendo did. I was constantly at GameStop talking people into it. I was like, you've got to get one. You got to try it. This game's awesome. This game's great. Even though I don't like Bayonetta 2, I remember how big of a get it was, and that nobody saw that coming. Nobody thought that Nintendo would take a hardcore game like Bayonetta and publish it exclusively for their own console. It was literally a shot to say, hey, we still want to appease to the hardcore gamer. We're not the casual gaming console. Dude, Mario Kart 8 was fantastic. You know,
Still is fantastic.
Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze is great. That is a great 2D platformer. Really good. Mario 3D World, one of the best games on the system. It was a little lessened by the game's media. I say that with like air quotes because it was so similar to the 3D entry. That shouldn't have held it back. The 3DS entry was also really good. The fact that you could play that game with other people like on the same screen together made the game a lot of fun. It added some chaos and a fun factor that Mario games really before it hadn't really seen. The fact they pulled that off in a 3D space was great, and the music and the visuals were superb. And then Smash Brothers. As you mentioned, dude, Smash Brothers is perfect. That is the best Smash Brothers game. I don't care what esport person tries to tell me otherwise. Smash Brothers was great. The fact that they also let you use a GameCube controller with the adapter, that they had that kind of fan service added to their new platform just was an extra layer of icing on the cake. And it still is perfect. I mean, I have it on 3DS. I'm out of these games, guys. Because I traded in my Wii U, because I'm all in on the Switch, because I feel like the Switch is going to get a lot of Wii U ports, I hope. I really hope that if the majority of these come to the Switch, I'll buy them again and play them again. If I can get Wind Waker HD on the Switch, I will buy and play it again. Ditto for Smash, ditto for Mario Kart, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, Mario 3D World. Hell, if Bayonetta 2, I may give Bayonetta another try. I may try it again. Because, I mean, these were good video games. And this is the stand, you know, the Wii U's last stand, if you will. This is the era where I often remember, we'll call it debating, not arguing. Debating with friends, debating with people that I met at the MTGG, you know, forums. I keep hearing people say, I love games, I love games, I love games. And I felt it was weird that you could say that and you weren't interested in the Wii U at this time. I remember that 2014 where so many people were like, I love games, but I don't want a Wii U. And it's like, how can you say that with all of these games coming? And they look so great and they play so great. And there were very few things. I don't think we've ever seen like a first party year like that year, where not only quality, but quantity, they were both there. We're talking a first party tentpole game coming out like every 2 months that all lived up to expectation. You know, it wasn't Star Fox. They were all great. Like, all of these games were really good. There was none of them were less than, like, if we were grading them, none of these were less than an 8. None of them. Right. All of them. Guacamelee, I mean, even the indie support during this time was incredible. And at this time, you know, they showcased, you know, what Zelda U was going to look like, which we'll get there and stuff. Like, there was even promise of the future. Like you said, Splatoon was something we'd never seen before. There was so much, like, at this time, you didn't feel it was over. But the fact that they threw everything that they did at the Wii U and the sales still didn't go up, if you actually thought Nintendo was going to support it, you know, long term after that, they couldn't. I mean, that was it. They did what they could. They tried. They couldn't jumpstart it. They couldn't find a heartbeat, and they had to move on.
Yeah, I agree. I think what needed to happen was half of these titles needed to be released during the drought.
Yeah.
They're, like you said, there's so many great games, and this was a heck of a year for Nintendo. But if they spaced it out a little bit, this would have kept the heartbeat going, if you will. They wouldn't have had to try and jumpstart it by giving us this year, and then even the titles that came later. That were still top tier titles, you know, not top tier, but I would still say, you know, your Captain Toads would still sell systems, you know, but keep people interested. Your Yoshi's Woolly World, your Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, games like that, the first party titles that were good too, they just weren't there at any point. And it's like, if you would spread that out a little bit and not put all your eggs in that one basket, we might still be talking about the Wii U for at least another year, perhaps. Now, like you said, with this content coming in and out, it just didn't make sense to keep it going. Like you said, if you couldn't read the writing on the wall at that point, once they had released the titles we already knew were coming out, you know that, okay, there was no Animal Crossing coming, there was no Metroid coming at this point, stuff like that. You're like, all right, they're already moving on to the next one. While I'd want more titles to come through afterwards, it was clear it wasn't going to happen. I don't necessarily want to see a lot of these titles come over on the Switch. Some of them I would absolutely play again, as long as they weren't trying to sell them again for $50 or $60. That's just me. But I don't want these in the quote-unquote launch window at all. Because here's going to be the problem. If they pump out Twilight Princess HD, and they put out Splatoon again, they put out Mario Kart again, they put out Smash Bros. Again, all within, let's say, the first 6 months of the Switch, the critics in the industry right away are going to go, Nintendo has nothing. They're reusing literally the same games from last gen with some enhancements that are being hinted there forward. And third party is going to pull support again. They're going to sit there and say, well, they already don't have anything to push this console right off the bat other than stuff they already had released that didn't sell the
I'd like to
time.
interject.
So,
If those games are expanded upon and offer something new, in the addition of having newfound portability, those games do offer something new. I mean, I think you assume that the 14 million people that bought Wii U still have them. I don't think that's a safe assumption. And then also, 14 million people is not 45 that PlayStation 4 is sold to. There's millions and millions of people who have never played those games. And they can market to that larger group of people as well. And like I said, if they enhance them, if they're just not a straight port, if they offer something new, then Nintendo has the ability to stand and say, hey, yes, this is a sequel or a follow-up or a supreme edition of this game, but this game is great, and we added these new features, and it's worth your money. And if they do that, I feel like it's safe. I get your point, but I will say this. I would rather them launch with ports of these games than Mass Effect 3, Batman, and Assassin's Creed 3, like they did the Wii U.
I don't know. I don't want to tread too much on Switch territory. My whole thing, just to kind of sum it up, I think you're right. I want quality, so even if some of it's recycled quality, it's better than shovelware. But in my mind, while your argument is valid, if somebody didn't buy a Wii U for Mario Kart, Smash Brothers, and Splatoon that all came out within the same 12 calendar months, why pull the trigger now on the Switch?
Because 18 million people watched the Switch reveal and nobody watched the Wii U reveal. Because people are interested in the Switch.
I don't think that's true. I think just as many people watched the Wii U reveal. I don't think it was just talked about as much.
The reaction couldn't be more different.
Exactly. That's the messaging. But when Splatoon came out and got critical raving, about how great it was, Mario Kart was literally 200% increase in sales when Mario Kart launched. I don't know if the market is that big where people who didn't already have a Wii U are going to pull the trigger on this right away. I think those people will come, but I think that's once the Switch itself builds itself a library. But we're getting into Switch territory, so we should probably stop.
Yeah, derail this train.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason. Continue.
All right, gentlemen. As you said, it didn't matter. It was all for naught because the end cometh. The slow demise in support. I mean, not only did we, what we saw during all this time, we saw all these timely Nintendo Directs. We saw Nintendo step away, from doing the big E3 presentations and have a much more online presence. But, we saw them communicate with us through these Nintendo Directs, which were awesome. But then, all of a sudden we knew something was going on because all of a sudden those stopped too. We didn't have everything just kind of came to a slow halt. There's notable hits though. We had Zelda delays with Zelda.
Oh God!
We were told all along it's gonna come to the Wii U, and we first saw it in a Direct in 2013, and then said that the development cycle was long. I believe that they noted too that they were having to change. I believe it was something about how they were coding things with the graphics engine was taking a specifically long time for everything. But we did get to see 2014 at E3 we saw the first trailer with Link riding Epona in Hyrule Field. At the Game Awards in 2014 we saw a gameplay video that showed inspirations of the game. We got to see some combat, things like that. And even then in 2015 they said it's all set. It's going to get released in 2016, and then in March of 2016, the game was delayed. And then, of course, we it got pushed. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's going to get its title." And then what was kind of rumored there? Everyone the rumors, everything was kind of just already felt that there was something. Why weren't we seeing games anymore? Why was all these everything slowing down? They have to be working. Well, Nintendo has to be working on something else. And then there's rumors that they're working on their next system. It's called the NX. And lo and behold, we know how that all played out here. But like I was saying to you guys before the show, what is so interesting for me about this experience is I have never been with a console that's just DOA before the replacements here. Like everything I've ever had has always been incremental. Like I had my NES, and that still had games, and I could still play that well until I made the jump into the 16-bit generation. Same thing there when I jumped up to a PlayStation, and then from the PlayStation to the GameCube, and then I kind of I stopped from consoles altogether. But with the Wii U, it's just like if I look back and I think over this year, like games I purchased and everything, and like the last game I bought was Twilight Princess and Star Fox, and that was the Q1 of this year. And there's been, with beyond the addition of Color Splash, I mean that's one other game I could have been slightly interested in. But there, without looking at indies, there was nothing.
The Rio Olympics, sir. You're passing on the Rio Olympic game.
Excuse me. It's just like I'm dumbfounded. It just feels so crazy to just watch your this thing you enjoy just be like, well, it's
the
done.
Wii U suffered a very, I would say, worse fate. The Wii, I mean not the Wii U, the Wii. The Wii lacked support like the last 18 months of its life before the Wii finally came, because like literally since they unveiled the Wii U, like in 2011, all the way until it launched 2012, nothing came. Just shovelware. Like there was no first party anything. It was a very long time. The Wii just kind of just sat there, very stale. But you're right. I mean, there's just nothing. And,
I forgot. Breath of the Wild is coming to Wii U.
Oh, yeah. And then, Power Tennis, right? That came out, like, earlier, before the year. But that was kind of like that and Color Splash and Rio were kind of like the last big first-party Wii U only games. I mean, they just kind of, they cleared out what they had. They reused assets, and then... yeah, they're just going to send it off to die. And the fact that we've been talking about Zelda U, which is now Breath of the Wild, since 2013, and it'll be 4 years in 2017 before we actually play that game, and we're still hoping we're playing it in 2017, and it's not confirmed.
All right.
Especially...
when did Skyward Sword release, the last console Zelda?
Oh, I don't remember, but it was I want to say 2010.
It's been a long time since we got console Zelda, basically.
Nintendo hit all these dates. All these games that we talked about, when they showcased the date and once they got going, like outside of the Pikmin delay, when they said Mario Kart 8 is hitting this, and Mario 3D World hits then, and Captain Toad hits this, and Splatoon's hitting this, and Bayonetta hits it, they hit every one of those dates. Mm-hmm. But for some odd reason, 4 years of delays on Breath of the Wild after they'd been working on it for years before they ever showed it, and it's still not here.
Nope.
Skyward Sword launched on November 20th, 2011.
Whew.
But yeah, while you guys were talking, I was looking at just what was released in 2016. So you have, this is a really short list, so I can actually read the whole list. You have Tokyo Mirage Sessions, you have Twilight Princess Remaster, you have Paper Mario Color Splash, Star Fox Zero / Star Fox Guard, Mario and Sonic at the 2016 Olympics, Shantae Half Genie Hero, Mighty Number 9, Just Dance 2017, Mini Mario and Friends Amiibo Challenge, which was free, Lego Star Wars, Lego Marvel's Adventures, Skylanders Imaginators, and then the rest were all indie titles.
Wow.
So you're looking at probably like 15 retail games, and that was it.
If you want to know how bad it is, I believe the next Just Dance game is releasing on Wii and not Wii U. Seriously, I seriously believe that to be fact. I believe it's releasing on Wii because the sales numbers are still there, and it's not going to release on Wii U. The next one, which I believe is also coming to Switch.
That's true. The Just Dance games always did sell on the Wii. I remember that when I worked at Best Buy. That was still a decent seller.
Oh dear.
That's when you read that back to me, Kevin, that's really not as bad as it sounds. I mean, it's bad now because we're already in that period where Color Splashes come. So now there's literally nothing from like September to March. There's nothing coming out. But, I had my Wii until about, 3 weeks ago. And I played Tokyo Mirage Sessions. And I played Star Fox and Star Fox Guard. And, some of those were good. Some of them weren't. But, I think there's been worse.
I mean,
I think when Mighty Number 9 is in your top 5 for the year, that's a problem.
I mean, think if you were like, what would you be excited about getting for Christmas as a Wii U owner?
The backlog.
Nothing. I mean,
It's true. It's true. Honestly, Paper Mario Color Splash, if you didn't have it already, that's it.
That's like it. Everything else is just so much a distant memory.
I heard the Rio game was good, but I never played it. But I read a lot of reviews, and apparently it's not that bad.
Yeah. I can see that.
So I'd say at this point, you just have to. Now's the time where you just enjoy what you have before the servers go dark.
I was thinking,
That's
and this
true.
would be, I know we need to move on. I really hope that if they do the ports, Kevin, I'm really hoping that like online play is supported cross-platform to give the Wii U owners that don't want to upgrade at least a little more life. That was something that I was really thinking. If they do the port, they can soften that blow. If they say, "Hey, did you buy Splatoon on Wii U? Guess what? You're going to be able to play with the new Switch players." If they could do that, that would be a really nice kind of, throw them a bone.
I would enjoy that. However, I'd hope the Switch is faster than the Wii U.
Oh yeah.
So as far as like response rate, so it wouldn't be fair to play against somebody on Wii U versus Switch. But I see what you're saying. I agree. Let the people play.
Yep.
I agree. So I guess that brings us towards the end as we lay the Wii U down to rest, essentially. But before we go, we are going to publish an article on the website, playsomevideogames.com. If for some reason you didn't already know that, but you should. Our list of must-play, must-own, must-have Wii U games. Because as we said, there are quite a few diamonds in the rough here and some gems throughout the muck and mire we had to wade through to get here. But we're going to provide you with a list of our favorite games. But before we do, let's tease a little bit of, let's say, our not necessarily our top 3 as in our number 1, 2, and 3 games, but 3 of our favorite top Wii U games. Just a quick, why it's in our list and why you should play it. And I'll just go first to kick it off. And for me, number 1 is, and I said it earlier, Paper Mario Color Splash.
Wow, number 1.
It's no. I'm saying it's not necessarily number 1. I'm saying it's 3 of our favorites. This game is great. It is definitely one of the best Wii U games that's out there. It's a shame it was so late into the life cycle when people have either completely wrote off the Wii U and don't play anymore, or maybe traded it in to grab a high trading value. I hope they do something with this to bring it to the Switch that more people play it, because me being a fan of Paper Mario, this is the best one since Thousand Year Door. I still don't think it beats it, but it is very close. It's very funny. Lots of little Easter eggs and look, hidden things in there that are nods to other great Mario games. So I'll leave it at that. That's a must play if you still have a Wii U. I'm telling you, play a game. It's worth it. Pikmin 3, I waxed on about this earlier. Still my favorite Pikmin to date. Graphics are beautiful, and it's a ton of fun with the multiplayer. They did great things with that, and I think this might have been, quote-unquote, the first Nintendo game to have paid DLC. They added a couple different modes and a bunch of co-op stuff that was added later on, and it was really cheap. Same thing as like $2 or3 for each DLC pack, and there were 2 of them, I believe. But me and my wife bought them all. We still, every once in a while, we'll boot it up and we'll play it, so that's a ton of fun, Pikmin 3. And then the last one I'll bring up is Yoshi's Woolly World. Great platforming game, tons of replayability, and a lot of fun to play with 2 people as well. So while, yes, you can get through the game easily on your own, I definitely wanted to go ahead and give a nod to that as well. And Donnie's messaging me saying Super Mario Bros. U, he thinks, had the first DLC with the Luigi one, which may or may not have been, but I just remember seeing like, hey, I can go in the store, and it actually promoted it, so it seemed a little bit different to me. It's the first DLC I bought on Nintendo at least, but there was a lot of bang for the buck there. It was definitely worth it. So 3 of mine, there you have it. Jason, how about you?
All right, so I'll keep some of the heavy hitters for later on. Got to get those clicks on the website, So I'm going to say one of my choices is going to be Captain Code Treasure Tracker. I think just because it was different than, at the time I hadn't played 3D World, so I wasn't familiar with the Captain Toad little mini stages there. But it was just a really different experience than any other game I owned. It was one where you could really just relax and have fun with these like cute little characters, and it was somewhat action based, but more puzzle based. I'm sitting here spinning the level around, trying to collect all the stars. A couple levels you had to blow into the gamepad to operate fans, and it just had some cool interaction with like that. That was just kind of a fun change of pace, and plus it wasn't, it was like a mid-tier offering. It came out, it was like, what, 30, was it 35 or $40?
$30.
So
Yeah,
it was like, it was like a nice little in-between that got you through some other releases. So I had a lot of fun with it. And that last level alone, oh my gosh.
The first game my daughter ever beat.
See, there you go. Another choice, I'm going to lump them together as the one would just be the NES Remix 1 and 2, the collection. For me, as someone that had grown up with the older games, it's just a cool way to experience some of my childhood and some nostalgia in a new way, kind of mashed up with these weird goals and things I had to do. And to this day, I'll still, like, if Lucas comes over, we'll fire up NES Remix and just pass the gamepad back and forth trying to beat levels and unlock stuff. And just a fun little challenge that we go back and forth through. And I think that'd be a lot of fun in, like, a party scenario with people. And my third selection, I am gonna go with. I'm gonna say Twilight Princess HD. And that's just because it's a great Zelda game, and it definitely benefits by not just having the textures, higher res and beautified, but getting gamepad implementation changes this game so much. It's so nice to be able to just swap items on the fly. You've got your map down there. I mean, I never would have gotten to play this game if it wasn't for this port, remaster. It's a great Zelda game. It got this awesome amiibo that came with it, which unlocks a few nice features. It was just I had a lot of fun with that game, and it's a great play to play it on the Wii U.
I still never did the Dungeon of Shadows.
And you never will.
All right, take it away, Donnie. Your turn.
I'm going to kick it off with a bang. Super Mario Maker. Like I said before, if this system launched with Super Mario Maker, we'd be talking about a different story. A story that was still ongoing. There has not been a better game on the system to showcase what the system can do and what makes it unique than Super Mario Maker. It's an endless Mario game, having the Nintendo World Championship courses baked in. Even the campaign and the fact that it's not so much a collection of Nintendo-made levels as much as it's a collection of Nintendo tutorials. I really felt like I learned more about Mario than any other Mario game before then. I mean, I really kind of feel now when I play Mario, for instance, on my 3DS, I play New Super Mario Bros. 2, I actually feel like when I'm going through the levels, I'm like, they put this here because of that reason. And that never would have happened without Super Mario Maker. And the fact that it's still ongoing, great game. So I'm going to go there. I'll prop up Xenoblade Chronicles X. The game was in development forever. It was one of those games that took a long time, was shown early, finally came. Boy, was it worth it. Monolith Soft. I dare say probably the best open world game on the platform, one of the few games that can offer that type of experience. But even so, the systems were really fun. The story was compelling. The characters were really good. If you like, those kind of action adventure RPGs, and I mean, come on, those mechs. It takes about 40 hours to get one, but I got one, and it is so much fun. And to take down these gigantic monsters that, I mean, to say they trump you would be, a disservice. They're massive. They take up this world, and it was great. I really enjoyed my 60 or 70 hours worth of that game. That game is so much fun. And then Hyrule Warriors. When this game was showcased, a lot of people thought it was a cheap cash-in and everything, and as I think many here at PSVG have learned, as Kevin and I have talked about it on various platforms, Hyrule Warriors is a great new spin-off for the Zelda series, something that's fresh, something I really hope continues on, not just on Switch, but for Nintendo just going forward. Zelda and the Musou series just makes so much sense. It gives the Musou series the lore and the story that it doesn't have, and it gives fans a reason to just kick butt with Link and all of his pals in a way that a Zelda game will never let you do it. The adventure mode, tons of replayability, a really good campaign, tons of content, DLC, amiibo support. I mean, it's just all there. It's a really good game.
Agreed. So that's just a little teaser for you also. As Jason said it, we got to give you some clickbait there. So after you're done listening to this, hop over to the website and check out our full list of must-own Wii U titles. Now, before we sign off and lock the door here at the Nintendo Shack, any final thoughts about the Wii U, Donnie?
I do think the Wii U might be my favorite gaming console of all time for all of its pros and its cons. I can't think of a video game system in the last 10 years that I've spent more hours with and more enjoyment, both with my family and by myself, as a gaming experience. And I'm really sad to see it go, and I'm hopeful that a lot of it will continue to live on in the future. But if it doesn't, I actually do really think I'll probably own another one. If the majority of this stuff doesn't come over to future platforms, I do see myself picking another one up because that library of exclusive is worth it. My last thought in terms of the cons, Nintendo's got to fix their account system in the virtual console. The fact that I can play DS games on this thing when it makes no sense and looks terrible and has awful mapping, but I can't play them on my 3DS, and the fact that we still don't have GameCube support. I believe the NES Classic has better virtual console in terms of quality. The new 3DS and their picture perfect or pixel perfect mode looks better than all the SNES games that came to Wii U. I mean, they've got to get that together.
Agreed. Jason?
The Wii U it'll probably always have a soft spot for the console. I have no regrets buying it, regardless that, with the refurbished deal I more than got my money's worth out of the system with the hours I put into Smash Brothers, Mario Kart online with friends, the community I found through Splatoon. I mean, I've had a lot of fun with the system, and plus, I've had this is the first time I've had a Nintendo console that gave me access to the virtual console and things like that. So, if nothing else, then the Wii U brought me back into Nintendo fold, because I had strayed away from the vibrant red and happy land that Nintendo offered for some time. So I'm delighted that the Wii U is what made me come back, and I don't know what my specific Wii U is, what's going to happen with it, what it'll be. Now it's a Netflix player for the time being, but I look forward to playing some games here with some of the PSVG community as we give the Wii U one last hurrah and send it off into the sunset.
I agree. So for me, for all of its flaws and the ridicule it got and even its successes, I think it was a great half step for Nintendo. I think they learned a lot from this, and I think they gave us a lot to remember as far as the Wii U. Did I spend more time playing that than any other Nintendo console? No, I didn't, but I'm not mad at that, because what I did play, I really, really loved. Just hoping they learn the lessons and they take it going forward to the Switch. I want to see some of these titles, not necessarily revamped for the Switch, but to continue on. I'd love to see a Hyrule Warriors, iteration of that, but different, But yeah, if you haven't played the Wii U and you're on the fence and you like Nintendo in the past, but you kind of drifted away, as Jason had said, take advantage of the deals we're going to see. I mean, there are tons of people trading them in. The used market is going to be flooded with, whatever Nintendo products are there come January, I think, once the official announcement kind of press conference happens. I think you'll have a chance to get some good deals, and it's definitely worth playing. So you should do it. If you're a fan of gaming and you haven't experienced some of these titles, you owe it to yourself as a gamer to experience some of this stuff. And I think the time will be coming very soon for those of you who haven't to take advantage and get into that. And if you have a Wii U still and you haven't played, your Splatoons, or you haven't played your, Paper Mario, and you haven't played, Twilight Princess Remaster, go grab it before it's gone. They may show up on the Switch, they may not. You may not want to spend $60 on it, whereas you can probably get some of these titles on the used market for a lot cheaper. So give it a shot, man. If you're a fan of gaming, give it a shot. It can't hurt to try. So with that, gentlemen, we send the Wii U off into that good night. And even though it has, for all intensive purposes, stopped gaming, we urge you all to never stop gaming.